Okay, so we'll move on to the slide there. So just a little introduction slide. So my own name is Susie Cullinane, and I am the Senior Projects Coordinator in Southeast Technological University, which is a newly established university in the southeast of Ireland. It was only established in May of 2022, but it was a merger of Waterford Institute of Technology, where I worked, and Institute of Technology, Carlow. So I've been working in Waterford for 25 years now, and have seen a lot of change in the organisation. Initially, I was the manager of the research support unit, so involved in all of the research funding and the applications, and we needed a system in order to make all of that process a lot easier, which is why we implemented Pure. And before I hand you over to Melodi to introduce herself, just to say that Pure has really streamlined everything that we do in the research office, and it really has revolutionised the way in which we manage research and our research processes. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk about how you can be a Pure superhero.
And I'm Melodi Moore. We're very close to Ireland. We're in Texas. I'm with University of Texas Medical Branch, which is southeast of Houston, down on the Gulf Coast. And Susie and I have been at conferences before, and so we were talking about what would we do different if we had to do it all over again. And so that's what we're going to tell you today, and how we would do it related to those things you don't think about that superheroes have. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I suppose I love this thing that is the journey into the unknown. So I suppose when we both commenced our individual Pure implementation journeys, it really was a journey into the unknown. For me at Waterford Institute of Technology, we were the first Institute of Technology in Ireland to implement Pure. In fact, CRIS systems have really only come into Ireland in the last few years, maybe in 2017-18. Some of the traditional universities would have had, in-house systems or bespoke systems, or maybe one or two had procured systems. Ireland is a very small island when it comes to academia. We had 7 universities and 13 institutes of technologies and a couple of smaller colleges. But 11 of the 13 institutes of technologies merged to become 5 technological universities. So you can see we're a small island when it comes to academia. But we had to put a national procurement framework in place. So we were working on that for 18 months. And now actually Pure has 13 customers from Ireland. And I think it was only 2020 when we signed the contract. So you can see how Pure has really kind of grown in Ireland in the last few years. So we signed the contract. We met our implementation manager, Q-Ho. I haven't seen him here this year at the conference. He was based in America at the time. We implemented Pure during the pandemic. So it was a very different experience than maybe some of you would have had. But just for those of you at the early stages of your Pure implementation journey, that Pure implementation manager is now your bestie. They are the person that you're going to tell all your woes to and your problems to, and hopefully they'll help you fix them and help you finalize your project plan, and then the real, work commences then at that stage. But yeah, so for me, it definitely was a journey into the unknown, but so rewarding now at this stage.
So, next. Yeah. What we discovered during our implementation, what we've discovered since, my implementation manager is actually no longer an implementation manager. Many of you know him. It's Lars. He is here. And I always say, Lars, this is all your fault. So like Superman changing in a phone booth, if I had it all to do over again, I would look at space. Because have you ever really thought about how does he do that? Well, you do if you look at it. But so we've now had a Pure instance for almost 10 years. We implemented it in 2015, and we had SciVal experts, but we went to Pure right as Elsevier bought Pure. I think we were among the first U.S. customers to do that, and we thought we had a great basis because we had SciVal experts. But looking back, I would have said more licenses, more space. We definitely need it because now 10 years down the road, we are looking at how do we expand and how much is it going to cost us. And had we just thought a little ahead, we would have known that we needed to do that to begin with. So.
So as Melodi said, space is paramount, and we all implement Pure, I suppose, at a particular point in time. And for us in Waterford Institute of Technology, and for a lot of organisations, it's usually when you're on a path to grow your research activity and your current systems are no longer fit for purpose because you need a more systematic way of managing your research information management, which necessitates the implementation of a CRIS system. So we needed, a better method of collating all of our applications, our awards, our research opportunities, our research outputs, etc. So that's why we implemented Pure. So for those of you at the early stages of your implementation projects, have you, factored in that organisational growth? Especially in Ireland, for example, we're all in a merger situation. So when I actually rolled out Pure, as I said, I was Waterford Institute of Technology, and we had 300 profiles when we launched Pure originally. We merged with Carlow then earlier on this year. Then we rolled it out on the Carlow campus for the Pure profiles for the staff. We went up to nearly 500 profiles. We have to bring in their PhD students, so we'll go up to 600 profiles by the end of this year. But also as a newly established technological university, there's a greater remit for us to actually have research outputs. So we're looking at increasing the numbers to 700. Now, we were lucky in the fact that we were coming to the end of our contract with Elsevier for Pure, so we're renegotiating that at the moment, but we need bigger numbers because like that we kept the numbers small, and then we were limiting the number of people who could have a Pure profile, and that's the last thing you want to do, to have to say no to people if they're not, as research active as somebody else. So I would say, yeah, absolutely factor in your organisational growth. And also with regard to the way in which you manage Pure. So for example, initially we couldn't get some changes made in our core HR system because a person might be, in a particular department but getting paid from another department. So therefore in the core HR system, they appear in the other department, but in the organisational, front face on the website, they wanted to appear in, the department that they're actually researching in. So we used to do some manual changes with the data when we got it out of the core HR system before we brought it into Pure. But the more your organisation grows, the more profiles you have, the more those manual updates, expand, and it becomes completely unmanageable. So that was one of the things that I think that I would do definitely differently now. I would spend a lot more time during the implementation phase encouraging and promoting and getting what we needed changed in the internal systems before I brought the data into Pure, because now we're going back to try and get it changed, 2 or 3 years on, and it's more difficult at this stage.
So, like the Hulk's clothing budget, because you have to think about every time he turns into the Hulk, he has to replace his clothes. More is better when you're dealing with budgets. And no one on campus, when we initialized this, had any idea how Pure would grow and how we would grow to need more and more modules. So having a larger budget to begin with would have been fabulous. Now, we initially, we added PRS at the beginning, because for the longest time, on Pure, my administration of Pure was that item on job descriptions, and I don't know if this is everywhere, but in the U.S., there's always that last item and anything else required. That was Pure. That was Pure for me. It was an anything else required. So, and that was until 2022. I had one guy on a team, Surya and his compadres, who would help me, who I'd call up and say, help me, this is the technical part. So they helped me there. But in 2022, we got a couple of extra research information systems people added it who helped me now. So for 7 years, it was just 2 of us. So PRS was great. I'm glad we did that. I'm not a librarian. I don't understand preprints, publications. That wasn't my background. And so it would have helped to have the library involved. They're still not, but I'm learning that part. The next thing we did, we had SciVal funding when we got Pure. Those of you who had SciVal funding, it then kind of went away when Pure came along because they were focused on Pure. We went away from it, but we came back to funding institutional. We work with that with Pure now, and we love that. And eventually, we do not have award management. We do that out of a separate system. Lars, I called you out a while ago. Welcome. We do that with a separate system, but if you do not have a separate system which you're in love with and you use, award management is also something you need to consider when you're looking at going forward and how are you going to grow this product and how are you going to include it. We eventually purchased the reporting module. Until then, I just downloaded it into spreadsheets, put it into Excel, and figured it all out. Reporting module, thank you, Milena. Thank you, Nikolai, helps so very much once you get to understand it, and it's getting better and better. And then there's data monitoring. We don't do that. We don't have that yet. We are looking at purchasing SciVal, which will help with our product. And so when you are looking at initializing, and I don't know how many of you are in the room that haven't done that yet, you really have to think about how are you going to grow with this system. As Susie said, what are the possibilities and what's going to make your life easier that way.
Okay. So as Supergirl, the Kryptonian heroine, said, I know how hard it is when everything we know to be true changes, but sometimes all you can do is accept the way things are and make the most of it. So as project managers, we all know that change is inevitable when you're implementing a project. And it's managing that change then becomes a really important aspect of your job, and communicating that change to your key stakeholders really is so important aspect of your job. So identify what will be improved as opposed to what's going to be changed, and then plan for that change. I've seen a huge problem, especially in the Irish sector, in getting sufficient resources. Like Melodi, I had myself and I had a technical officer, and we were implementing all aspects, the award management module, the profiling, the reporting, all of the different modules in Pure. And sometimes I feel very jealous when I hear people saying, you know, my team of 10 people that are looking after Pure or something like that, and I'm there going, if only we had that many people. So try and ensure, if you are at the early stages, that you have allocated sufficient resources to the project. But not only to the implementation project, but to Pure when it's rolled out, because I, again, naively thought I'd implement Pure and then I'd go back to my normal day job as the research office manager. But that's so not the case, obviously, because there's massive amount of diverse data being added to Pure on a daily basis that needs to be curated and checked for data quality. And only in the last, we have a new person after starting in the office, and we've set up a Pure steering committee, and we're starting to look at all of the different data sets in Pure, because it fell back to myself and Michael all of the time to, you know, check all of the external organizations, the external persons, the research outputs. We were doing everything, and it's just not feasible because we have tens of thousands of, you know, all of these things in Pure. So you need to have people identified early on, and I should have done that. I shouldn't have been doing it, you know, 4 years into our rollout. I should have done that early on, that, you know, a certain person was responsible for that particular content type in Pure, because now I think I have 28,000 external organizations and around 10,000 aren't validated yet. So we have a long road ahead of us. So get on top of those things really early on. Make sure that your external organizations, your external persons are validated quickly on, and have people identified as who are going to take responsibility for those roles. And that can be hard because it is a change project, and, you know, people have their own normal day jobs as well to do, but it's critically important to do that in order to implement change. And then I suppose the final point there is embedding change within organizational culture and practices. And that's a really difficult thing to do, and we're still grappling with that. Whilst we have Pure embedded into policies and procedures, so our open research policy and our, you know, procedural guide for managing funded research projects, getting it embedded in the culture of the organization is quite difficult. First of all, I should have got it embedded in the policies and procedures early on, whereas I wanted to take the kind of carrot approach as opposed to the stick approach. Like, you know, it's in a policy, you have to do it, whereas here's the benefits to you as a researcher of having an actual Pure profile. And what I did recently is we launched a new Pure newsletter, and in it what we have is, from the words of the researchers themselves, how Pure benefited them, how it increased their collaborations, or how somebody found their profile and now they have a new funded project. And that's how you change the culture in the organization. It's when they hear from their peers the benefits that such a system can bring, then they're more inclined to use it. Okay, we all know Batman. How? Everyone awake? So
like Batman, he has no superpowers. Most of us don't, so we have to learn how to be creative. We may not have the utility belt and the really super cool car, but we can still be creative and don't need human strength. One of the things with that is you have to really learn different ways to use Pure. I have a couple of examples. Most of you know my United Nations SDG thing. We can't use it. We don't use the SDGs from the United Nations in Texas, statewide. And it's not really been adopted in any state around us. But I loved the idea. It's colorful. It gets your attention. It's great. So we were creative, and we had a strategic plan. It had 6 health communities, so we created a badge for the 6 health communities, and then the Pure development team helped us put those badges on our website. We also have shadow systems, like the guy who's in charge of patents. All of his patents are on a spreadsheet on his computer, in an Excel spreadsheet. And how do I get those in there? So being creative like that, figuring out that you're going to have to bring that spreadsheet in, clean it up, not use the proprietary data that he's really worried about that you're going to share with everyone. And so just being creative on how to talk him into giving you his spreadsheet, first of all, and then adding it is these creative systems like that. And then use reporting beyond reporting. Download it and put it into Power BI. We have been doing this, and it works, and it's great, and we can put it into dashboards. We can put all that data, and then you send yourself an email in Power, and it updates all that, and then you just link those 2 systems. So creativity is key.
Mm-hmm. So just like Wonder Woman, the princess of Themyscira, the Pure project manager must possess immense powers in order to get the job done. So whilst Wonder Woman's advanced senses helps her to detect enemies from afar, our advanced senses help us to see into the future or to plan for the future. And we do this by being on the right internal working groups. Like I said, I was on the change management group. They didn't make decisions, whereas I needed to be on, the university group that looked at the core mergers, for example, and then the change changes wouldn't have taken place that are going to affect my data in Pure. I suppose while Wonder Woman's superhuman strengths help her to bend objects, for example, our superhuman strength is our stamina, because we deal with tight deadlines, we deal with a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, we have to deal with multiple tasks at the same time, and our stamina helps us to keep calm, to keep going, even when we're faced with challenges. And finally, while we wish we had telepathic control over our users to get them to enter their data into Pure, or at all engage with Pure, we put in place policies and procedures and other things like newsletters and stuff like that to try and get the user community to actually use it. But it's getting that communication out to them all of the time, that they showed them the benefits of Pure all of the time, that will help us to change their minds about Pure.
So Melena's given us the 5-minute. So the next thing, just the unseen things can really be the most dangerous. Those things you don't expect. I can talk to you about single sign-ons. I can talk to you about unexpected like hurricanes, where you have no power. And so just know how you're going to pivot and have those things in place to know how you're going to take care of things like that.
Okay, I'll be quick. So I suppose let the battle begin. So sometimes it really can feel like a battle, getting access to the data that you want initially when you're rolling out the project to bring into Pure can be challenging, and get the researchers to engage with Pure can be challenging. So how do you overcome these challenges? I've been dealing with researchers and academics for the past 25 years, and I find them extremely competitive creatures. So when they see what somebody else has, they want it. So for example, I spent a lot of time, I couldn't get some supervisors to update their profile or to even claim their profile. So I spent a lot of time with their PhD students, and I got their PhD students having fabulous profiles and putting in their joint publications on their profile. So then the academics came to me looking for, their profile, because they wanted to be linked to their student on the portal. And also, as I said, the newsletter. So, putting a person's story in a newsletter, saying how it created collaborations. For example, in our last newsletter, one of our researchers she was found by 3 other of the Carlow colleagues because we're a newly merged organisation. They didn't know each other, but they searched for her specific expertise on Pure, found her, and now she has 3 funded PhD scholarships in between the Waterford and Carlow campus. So that's a wonderful success story for to be able to showcase to other researchers across the organisation. This is kind of just a slide coming into the next slide. So obviously, Pure talks, your Pure colleagues talk about, the 5 C's of data quality. So to ensure that they're complete, correct, connected, current, and compliant. And when you look this up, there's lots more that it can actually achieve, but it leads me to data governance, and I feel that this is one of my biggest failure when rolling out Pure in Waterford, was that I didn't set up a data governance committee early on in the actual Pure implementation project. And in fact, I'm only setting it up now at the moment because of advice from the global data quality Pure user group. So data governance, as we all know, is required in order to manage institutional-wide or university-wide multiple team use of shared data tables across the organisation, and for the cleanup of all of this data, especially when you implement Pure. And we have legacy, migrated, integrated data all coming into Pure on on manual updates of Pure on a daily basis that we need to protect and mind our data, because without it we can't have those strategic insights and we can't make decisions based on it. So I'd strongly advise those of you at the early stage to set up a data governance committee, and then change can't be made to data sources that you might have been getting for the last 3 or 4 months, and now there's a simple change in it that actually messes up the way in which you import your data.
And finally, I just want to say that the whole is greater than the individual. Like, we are our own Justice League here, and we all of our superpowers are amplified when we join together. So join your user groups, come to the conferences, make best friends with those SMEs and whatever their new titles are that you can reach out to and say help, and talk to. Don't be afraid. There is no stupid question. I still don't know what a cron job is, but I don't need to. Somebody else does. There's no stupid questions. So don't sit there and be quiet because you're afraid that you're going to ask the wrong question. You won't. And we will all forgive you because we've all had the same questions. So really, that is the most important thing. Reach out to your colleagues.
Okay, so this is our poll question. Who is your favorite superhero? And then the next one then is, what powers do they have that you would like? Do I move it on to get it? No. Does it come up automatically? Okay. So yeah, so I think we might have seen this maybe earlier on in the conference, but we did submit our presentation a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, and actually that's Wonder Woman seems to have been the most popular earlier on as well.
And do we have another poll? What powers?
Yeah, we have another poll there. So it was, what powers do they have that you would like to possess as a Pure project manager?
And you can think of that because we're almost out of time. So there it is.
So do you want a sharp mind, genius intellect, superhuman strength, advanced senses, mind control? I'd like the mind control one. Or the stamina. I think for the stamina has gone off the front one there. Okay. It was interesting. Do you want to do the last one?
So just remember, there is a superhero in all of us, and we just need the courage to put on the cape and go forward. And I really encourage you, look at your leadership, your communication, your collaboration, and your organization, and figure out how you're going to put all this together, and then reach out to your colleagues. Thank you all so much for being here.